Participants will be on listen-only mode for the duration of today's conference. I will now turn the conference over to Christine Beauregard. Thank you, and please begin.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us for today's webinar, DD Form 254. I assume that everyone knows what the 254 is, but what I bet you don't know is that although this is probably one of the most important forms in the NISP, it is probably also one of the most misunderstood forms. To change that, we're going to start our webinar with a little background information about the 254, and we're going to finish with a group review of a poorly written 254 to determine what's wrong, and believe me, there's going to be a lot wrong. And although we'll be reviewing the 254 from a company perspective, those of you who are attending with us this afternoon from the government, the procedures, the guidance are really the same whether you're government or contractor, so keep that in mind as we go through that 254. It's also going to be helpful to have a copy of the guide for the preparation of a 254 available close by when we go through the form, so if you have that, I'll let you know when a good time to pull that out will be. But before we get into all that, let's start with some of our administrative housekeeping duties, and we'll start with our introductions. For those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, like I said before, I am Christine Beauregard, the Industrial Security Curriculum Manager here at CDSE, or at least I'll be your Industrial Security Curriculum Manager for the next 22 days because I'm retiring on June 30th. A round of applause, yay! Hopefully we'll have someone who will take over and keep the ball rolling for you as we go forward. In the studio with me is one of our instructional system designers here at CDSE, Rachel Mojo, and she's going to be working behind the scenes for their technical aspects, keeping us on track and on time, and she's also going to be providing some instructions so that you all can participate equally as we go through today's webinar. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Rachel for a minute.
Okay, thank you, Chris. I'll start by showing you where the file share box is in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. You'll find 3 files in there today. We have the webinar slides, we have a practical exercise, and guide for DD254. It's a great idea to print the practical exercise if possible because you can take notes as Christine explains a DD254 form. You'll also see we have a closed captioner with us today. She does a great job of taking notes as we go. Please bear with us as we get through. There will be a slight delay with taking the notes as we go. There's also a notes and announcements box. If you need to use a phone line, you'll find a phone contact information there. Otherwise, we are coming in through VoIP, through your computer speakers. You'll find a Q&A box. If you have any questions for Christine, please feel free to enter them into the box. If we don't address your question today, we will post them on the CDSE website within our webinar archive page. Lastly, you'll see that there will be a few polls come up on your screen as we go through the presentation. Please participate. It makes for a more interactive presentation. You'll see some chat questions as well. Participate in those. We like to get your feedback as we go. Please do stay tuned at the end. We will have an area for feedback, and you can tell us suggest any future topics if needed. That concludes my presentation. I'm going to pass it back over to Christine.
All right, thanks, Rachel. All right, we're going to start off. I'm going to put you in a time machine, and we're going to go back in time to 1985. I'm a brand new IS rep in Hartford, Connecticut, and one of the first things that becomes very clear to me is that DD Form 254s are a mess. They're a problem, and I'm going to fast forward you to 2017, 22 days before I retire. Did I mention that earlier? And guess what, guys? 254s are still a problem. And I think the problem continues to exist over this 32-year period for a simple reason that people really don't understand this form, is it really is only used when we're dealing with classified contracts, all right? When you have a government classified contract is the only time a 254 is going to come into play. But I don't want to leave you with the impression that all 254s are a mess. There are a lot of agencies, organizations, and companies that do a really great job with their 254s. But then there are others who don't have a clue what they're doing, and that's where our problem comes in. So the challenge we all have, especially in industry, is to tell the difference between those that provide good guidance and those that don't. And on the government end, your challenge is to make sure you provide that good guidance. It's my hope that today's webinar will leave you with a better understanding of the form, the significance of the information on the form, and the important role this form plays in the National Industrial Security Program. So let's start with a first chat question out of the box to see just how well you think you know the 254. Rachel?
Okay, you'll see a area on your screen where you can enter a response. Why do we use the DD Form 254? What is its purpose? Go ahead and type your responses into the box.
Okay, I'll see what kind of responses we get here, Rachel. Only on classified contracts. Thank you, Kelly, for congratulating my retirement. I actually have 14 working days, 22 calendar days, but who's counting? Okay, classification guidance, very good. Purposes for classification guidance for classified contracts. All right, I think you guys really have the hang of what the purpose or what it's used for. And if we go to our next slide, let's kind of break it down. So why do we use the 254? We use it because it's required. It's required by something called the Federal Acquisition Regulation, or the FAR, and which is used for providing us the rules for government acquisition and contracting. Section 4.403, I believe, is the responsibilities of the contracting officers, and in that section it states that agencies covered by the NISP shall use the 254 for classified contracts. The form must be a part of the contract package and is used to identify other security requirements that may be imposed on a contractor. In addition to the FAR requirement, there's also a NISPOM requirement to use the 254. The NISPOM requires that a 254 be issued by the government with each classified proposal or solicitation, and for any classified subcontract issued by the prime. Let's get to our next question. So we know why we use it. It's required by the FAR and the NISPOM. What is the purpose for the form? And I think a lot of you hit it right on the head. The purpose is to provide security requirements, security classification guidance needed to perform on classified contracts. So the purpose is to give you the guidance you need to protect our national security information. But in addition to that primary purpose, there's a couple secondary purposes for the form. And the first one I want to mention here is that having 254s validates the need for your company to continue or to get a facility clearance. If I come to your company, I'm your IS rep, one of the questions I'm always going to ask you is if you have any classified contracts, and if so, to give me a listing of those along with the 254s. If I ask that question and you look at me and you say, Chris, we don't have any 254s at this time, anybody want to bet to guess what my next question to you is going to be? All right, then why do you need to keep this facility clearance? Let's work towards that administrative termination, and then if you need to come in, we can bring you back into the program. So the secondary purpose of the 254, it really does validate the need for your company to have or to continue to have its facility clearance. And the last one is just as important. It's not any less important because it's our last one. But as you all may probably know, the 254 is one of the authorized sources for derivative classification. So this form can actually be used to classify other documents or to generate material at your company. I'll tell you this, in my 9.5 years as an IS rep in New England and in Maryland, I probably only ever saw the 254 used a handful of times to actually provide classification guidance. What I saw more often was that they provided you the security classification guide, or you use source documents to make those derivative decisions. All right? So remember, the main purpose is to provide that security classification guidance. It has those secondary purposes to validate the need of your facility clearance and as a source of derivative classification. The line that you see on the bottom of this line is probably one of the most important I want you to pay attention to, and that is that for every classified contract issued to your company, you should have an associated 254. So if I come into your company, I ask the question, you say, Chris, we have 5 254s. I would expect you to show me 5 DD Form 254s. If you tell me, Chris, we have 5 contracts but only 3 254s, okay, a little sensor's going to go off, a little light bulb over my head. I'm going to say, where are the 254s for the other? And then it's your job to find that. And how you're going to find that is the first thing I would do if I was looking for a 254 that I didn't have is I would start with our contracts department or person and go and see. Remember, it's a part of the contract document issued to your company. I believe you can find it in one of the appendices. I think it's Appendix J. Ask your contracts person to pull the contract, open it up, look at Appendix J at the back, and see if you see a 254. If so, start reaching out and educating your contracts person of why it's important that you get those when those contracts are issued. If it isn't there, you're still not off the hook as a contractor. I want you to contact your government customer and ask for that 254. If they are requiring your company or any of its people to have a clearance to do whatever it is they want you to do for them, that is a classified contract. And your company must be cleared, and your people must be cleared, and you must have a 254, kind of simple. Okay, next question we're going to do is, since we know the purpose and we know why we use it and what the requirement is, we're going to do a first poll question of today. Rachel?
Okay, we're looking to find out what the NCCS is. Does it stand for National Classified Contracts System, NISP Cleared Contractor System, NISP Contract Classification System, or National Classification Concepts Seminar?
Okay, we got some responses coming in hot and heavy here. It looks like A is our leader, followed by C, and we have a few people who believe B is our correct answer. And drum roll please, the correct answer is C, the NISP Contract Classification System. Next slide, Rachel. The 2 bullets that you see on the slide are really the 2 big takeaways about the NCCS that I want you to remember. It establishes a central repository for our DD Form 254s and supporting documentation, and it automates the process of completing and filling out the 254. It also has interfaces to the various systems that might be helpful, things like the SAM for cage codes and ISFD for facility clearance and storage information. And it's going to be, I think, a really great move. In 32 years, as I retire in 22 days, our process for keeping track of our 254s is a manual process, which is hard to believe in this day and age, that we actually still have to look at paper and search files to find out who is working on what projects wherever they might be. This is going to be a great step forward. Although it's not going to be perfect at first, it's going to get better and better with each revision or each version that comes out. The website that you see on the slide is where you can find more information if you're interested. And it is, I will tell you that implementation of NCCS began a year ago, last June. There are currently 10 agency registered and 10 in process to participate in the Phase 3 implementation, which runs from May of August of this year. Industry has 33 companies registered, with over 43 more companies in the process of getting into the game. So if you're interested in playing with NCCS before it's required, you can find all the information at the DSS website that you see there. But in order for it to be mandatory for industry, there's going to have to be a requirement, just like there's a requirement to use the 254. And this requirement would also come from the FAR. It would be a FAR clause that's put in place. It has been developed by our DSS headquarters folks, and it's going through the process of approval, which, as we all know, can take a while. And so we really don't know when it's going to come out. The bottom line is eventually industry will be a required player in the NCCS. Right now, that is not the case. Also want to mention that there's a new DD Form 254 in the works. It is anticipated it will be signed shortly and approved by OMB. Last I heard was by maybe late summer, early fall. So keep an eye out for the new DD Form 254. I'm not sure what the changes are. I saw a very early draft of that form, and I know that that has changed from the original, I guess, vision of what it would look to probably what's about to come out. All right, so now that we know about why we use it, how we use it, and the NCCS, let's see if Rachel can take us to our second poll question.
Yes, here we're looking to see who prepares the DD Form 254. Is it the FSO or security specialist, the program or project manager, contracts department or contracting officer, or is it all of the above?
All right, here we go. We're off and running, and it looks like all of the above has a lead, pretty good lead. It's gaining a lead. And we have a pretty close run for second, third, and fourth right behind there. And the correct answer that I'm looking for is D, all of the above. And let's go to the next slide to kind of explain that. It makes sense that this form should be prepared by a team because not one person has all the expertise needed to do a good job in filling this form out. Whether it's in the government or a contractor facility that's doing this, the same guidance applies. We should have someone from security who knows the security rules and requirements that may apply to this project or this program. We recommend that you have someone from your program office, a program manager who is an SME, has knowledge of the classified program, and really has that technical piece. We should also recommend that you have someone from contracts who knows the contracting requirements and avenues that need to be met in order to get this contract, or this 254, perhaps part of that contract document issued to the contractor. Unfortunately, in a perfect world, that would happen, but if many of you are FSOs out there, or if you're a government security specialist who have had the responsibility to do this, we know that it usually lands in security's lap to fill out this 254. Contracts looks at it as a security form because it provides security classification guidance. A lot of times security looks at it as a contracting form because it's part of the contract. So we each kind of like point our fingers at one another and say, hey, you do it, no, you do it, and then we know who usually ends up with it, and that is security. So if you're a security officer and you have to fill one of these out, whether you're in your government or industry, I want you to see if you can get others who have the other knowledge you might be lacking to help you out, so that your goal is to provide the best guidance you can to either the prime contractor if you're the government, or the subcontractor if you're the prime contractor issuing it down the line. What I don't want you to do is to get into some bad habits. You government folks, here's what I don't want you to do: to take a blank 254, give it to the company you're about to award the contract to, or that you've already awarded the contract to, and say, here you go, Mr. and Ms. Contractor, fill this out, and tell me what you think you need, give it to me, I'll sign it and give it back to you. That's not the way that you should be doing it. There's nothing wrong with getting input from the contractor, but they shouldn't be solely responsible for filling it out. And in industry, what you don't want to do is take a look at the form, say, I have no idea what to do, so I'm going to pull the last one we did for a different program perhaps. I'm going to copy everything over to this new form and pass this down the line, and I've met my responsibility, right? Well, you've given them a 254, but you didn't give them the guidance they need to know. So it's important that you take the time and tailor the 254 to the effort that's going to be done either by that prime contractor or the subcontractor. Okay? So now that you have a better understanding of the 254, let's see if we can identify what's wrong with the following 254 that we're going to review. If you have your guide to preparing the 254 handy, this is the time you want to pull it out. And if you have a copy of the 254 you want to follow along with, that might be a good idea too. If not, you can follow along on the screen and we'll get through the form. I've kind of broken it down into 4 sections so we can see it a little easier on the slides. So let's set this up with our scenario. In this 254 that we're about to review, we are all the FSO. So each one of us is the FSO of this company, Yellow Cab Corporation. We're located in Hazard, Maryland. Yellow Cab was recently awarded a secret facility clearance with secret safeguarding, and we just received our first classified contract from the Joint Transportation Command located in Fort McHenry, Maryland. It's a 3-year contract, and we are tasked to prepare design specifications and drawings for the computer-powered military vehicles, commonly known as CPMV. The CPMV Master Security Classification Guide has been provided to Yellow Cab under separate cover, so we already have that. In this contract, there is no SAP, there is no carve-out, there is no intelligence information, but there may be a requirement for ComSec access. Okay? As we go along and look at our form, if you spot something that's wrong and you want to share it, just type it into your chat box or the Q&A, whatever's up there for you. I think it's a Q&A box. And then let's go ahead, Rachel, and take a look at Section 1, which covers items 1 through 7. And we're going to start with item number 1. As we review this, first thing, I get a big light bulb going off over top of my head already. I see they want us to have a secret facility clearance with top secret storage. I'm going to tell you, in my years of experience, I got 32 years I'm taking with me, right? We have never allowed a company with a secret facility clearance to store top secret information. It ain't going to happen. In order to store top secret, you're going to have a top secret facility clearance. So is this a typo? Or do they really require top secret storage, which means our facility clearance and the clearances of our KMPs are going to have to be upgraded to that higher level before we can start this work. All right, let's move on to item 2. It starts out looking pretty good. 2A, it is a prime. The government's issuing it to this Yellow Cab Corporation, and they've given us their prime contract number. But they kind of mess it up when they also mark 2C as yes or applicable, because that's for solicitations, proposals, bids, whatever the name might be, and it shows a due date of June 30th, 2020, which would be okay if this was a solicitation and they wanted to wait 3 years to get these solicitations back. But it doesn't make much sense to me just looking at this one given to Yellow Cab. What probably happened is they weren't sure what they were doing, but they knew it was a 3-year contract, so that looks like a 3-year date they put there, thinking it's for the contract, not the solicitation. So my guess is that that should not be marked, and that date should not be in there. But I can't sit there and make that decision. I'm going to have to go back to the government customer and ask them what's meant by that, okay? Item 3. What you see in item 3 is the 3 times that you might receive a classified contract. A is original. 2 times when you might get an original is when you're responding to a bid, a solicitation, or proposal. You'll get an original 254 for that effort. Once all of those responses are received, the original for the bid ceases to exist, and the government issues another original 254 for contract award. Okay, so you can get an original for at the solicitation stage and at the contract award stage. Revised 254 would be issued if there are any changes to the classification guidance that would affect what you're doing. We would always use the same original date, but if we were issuing a revised, we would put the revision number. This is the first one, perhaps, so it would be number 1, and the date of that revision, and that date would change with each subsequent revision. But here they're telling us it's revised, and this is the 12,345th update, which I'm telling you, we're going to be lucky if you get 1 revision out of somebody, much less 12,000 revisions. So I don't think that's what this is. It looks like they carried forth the last 5 numbers of the contract over here for some reason. So I'm going to say this should be an original since it was just awarded. And what shouldn't be marked, item B, should not be marked. C is for a final 254, and you'll only get a final 254 if you're asking for additional retention for any of the classified material you received or generated under an effort. Remember, the NISPOM gives you an automatic 2 years to hold on to any material received or generated. If you want to hold it on beyond that 2 years, you have to go and ask, and this is one way they could give it to you is by issuing a final 254. Because if you look at item 5, it tells you that this is a final 254 in response to the contractor's request dated, whatever the date of your request might have been. Retention of the material is authorized for a period of 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever the time might be. I would say this probably is not a final 254. They didn't mark it in item 3 for 1, and it is just awarded. So I would think this should be a no, as well as a follow-on contract above. It is not a follow-on. It is the first time it is issued to us. Item 6, we identify the prime contractor. The government identifies your company, Yellow Cab, as the winner of this contract. They should have provided the cage code and the Cognizant Security Office, and they left that blank. And finally, item 7, subcontractor. We are the prime. We would issue the sub. It would not come from the government, so I would expect to see that blank as you see it on the screen. Okay, let's go to our second section, which covers 8, 9, 10, and 11. And if we look at item number 8, actual performance location, our company that was issued this contract was Yellow Cab in Hazard, Maryland. It looks like the performing location is going to be our division down in Virginia Beach, Virginia. So the customer, our government customer, has identified Virginia Beach as the operating location for this effort. So they've identified them there. They should have included a cage number, and they did give us a CSO, but it looks a little hokey to me because of the address there. They're telling us that that DSS office is in Hanover, Maryland, which may be the CSO for Yellow Cab in Hazard, Maryland, in item 6C. But here I'd expect to see the DSS office down in Virginia Beach. I think that's all I have to say. So we need a cage code, and we need the new Cognizant Security Office information here. Also, if I work at Hazard and DSS comes out to do your assessment, I would expect when they look at this 254, they would expect that no work for this effort will be done in Hazard, Maryland, because the customer has told you it's all being done in Virginia Beach. Item 9 is the overall identification. Here, just a short, concise kind of explanation of what you're doing. And here they told us design specifications and drawings for the CPMV, which seems pretty appropriate to me. You don't need to put the whole statement of work here. A simple, concise statement like you see here would be okay. 10 is what I call our access requirements. And here they only told us that there will be some FOUO information. And if they're telling us that, they also have to provide us guidance on how to handle and protect that information. 11 is what I call the performing requirements. And I see a lot over there that doesn't look good to me. And the first thing I see is A and C are marked yes. Only one of those 3, A, B, and C, should be marked yes on your 254s. Whether you're issuing it or you're receiving it from the government, doesn't matter. Only one of those should be marked yes. Take a look at A. It says that you'll have access to classified information only at another contractor's facility or government activity. That tells you that all your access is somewhere else. About half of our clear companies in participating in this are access elsewhere companies. C says that you're going to receive and generate classified material. So how can you receive and generate if you're only having access somewhere else? We should only see one of those, and if they wanted you to receive and generate and have access somewhere else, the appropriate answer here would be C. So I would only want to see C. But they also went ahead, if you look down to H, they also told us that we would have to have a ComSec account, which confuses me a little bit because back in item 10 under accesses, they didn't tell us we needed ComSec information access on 10A. So again, I want to straighten that out with my government customer to find out what's really happening here. All right, let's turn the page over. Look in the back. Our section 3 is item 12 and 13. 12 looks pretty good. They've told us that they want everything to come back to them before we release it, and that would be appropriate. And in 13, they told us that they provided the CPHV classification guide under separate cover. There's no additional security requirements, and contract deliverables will be classified no higher than secret, which kind of starts making me think back to that top secret storage requirement. Maybe it is a mistake because here they're telling us nothing's higher than secret. But take a look at the guide that they provided us. They're telling us they gave us the CPHV guide, where the contract we're working on is the CPMV project, right? The military vehicle project. I don't know what the HV project is or what that guide is. So maybe it's a typo, or maybe they did send us the wrong guide. We definitely need to straighten that out. All right, and our last section that we'll take a look at is the end of the page, the bottom half of the back portion. 14 and 15 look okay because if you remember, back in item 10, they didn't tell us we needed any Intel access or special access, program access. which is what these two would be used for. 14 tells us that in addition to the ISM requirements, for those of you who are less seasoned than some of us, the ISM is the predecessor to the NISPOM, so just insert NISPOM there. So there are additional security requirements in addition to what the NISPOM requires, which is an indication it's one of those special programs or accesses. And 15 talks about inspections, the elements of this contract are outside the inspection responsibility of DSS, and that's not the case either. So no seems appropriate there. 16 seems okay. It's got the information we need, the number, and it is signed. Never accept one that's not signed. And then the required distribution seems pretty reasonable to me as well. So that's it for reviewing a 254. If you break it down like item by item like we did, it's easier to swallow. So I hope you can follow the same kind of methodology when you're looking at your own 254s at your company, or if you're in the government completing one of these, look at it item by item as you're filling it out. But don't worry, you don't have to know all this by yourself, because CDSE has some really good resources for you. And you can get them all from our FSO toolkit on the FSO page. Just scroll down to the bottom of the page where you see information about working on classified contracts, and all of our resources are right there for you. And that about does it for today's webinar. It's my hope that you are now not only have a better understanding of what the 254 is, but that you're more comfortable reviewing and understanding the significance of the information contained on these forms. I challenge you all to become intimately familiar with the 254s issued to your company or that you are issuing to a company, and take time to review them like we did today, item by item. And if things don't look or feel right, start asking questions to those who do know the right answers. Hopefully, by paying better attention to the information on the form and the use of NCCS and the new 254 that will come out shortly, 30 years from today, we still won't be calling this form one of the most misunderstood. And finally, I would like to thank you all for your attention and participation in my very last ever webinar here at CDSE. It's been an honor and a pleasure being your curriculum manager over the last several years, and you guys have made my job easy because you've all been a really good audience and have been very accepting and liking of most of what we do here. I hope you continue to find value in the industrial security products here at CDSE. You might see the quality go down a little bit now that I'm not here, but that might be expected. I'm just kidding. I'm sure everything will continue and will probably get better. And I wish you all much success in all you do. But don't leave me yet, because we have some question time built in, but we've gone over our time. I don't have time to take questions, but if you do, please put it in the Q&A pod. Rachel's going to collect all those and provide them, and we'll get answers, and we'll put them up on our webinar archive page in the very short future. There's one other thing I need you to do before you leave, and that is to help us with our survey. You should see a survey appear on your screen, and once you see that, just follow the prompts and answer the questions before you log out today. It'll only take you a few minutes. It's very brief, but the information and feedback you provide is really invaluable as we continue to make sure we give you good quality products through these webinars. Thanks again, everyone, and it's for the very last time, and I really mean it this time, goodbye. And remember, don't ever miss an opportunity to learn at lunch. See you all sometime, somewhere, maybe on the beach. Take care. Bye-bye.
Once again, with that, we'll conclude today's conference. Thank you for participating. You may disconnect your lines at this time.